Cardano SpacePlace, episode number 105, DAO building. Hey, y'all.
Hey.
All right. Welcome,
Hey.
everybody. Cardano SpacePlace number 105, talking DAO building tonight. We got some of our buddies from Adosia here tonight, Pete and Chris. We've got Steve. We got Adam. Welcome, guys. Good to see y'all. We're actually trying to socialize Adosia's governance model, Adosia's DAO, that will be the tool that small business uses to run its business, right? Governance isn't just for blockchains that, and their treasuries. It's for day-to-day business operations as well. Every company should have a governing model, right? And so Adosia's trying to help lead the way here a little bit, building a governance model in public. Good job, guys. Open sourcing it, Creative Commons, 100%. So everybody else can take advantage and use it. Very cool thing. So welcome, everybody.
Thanks for having all of us, Lloyd, our gracious host this evening.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's nice to be here.
Every once in a while, I get to helm the SpacePlace crew and take us to wherever in the crazy galaxy of Cardano 8.0 we go. So let's see where we go tonight.
Never know what goes down, what's going to go down on a SpacePlace.
Never know.
I forgive my silence. I've got 5 billion tabs open, and I'm trying to get all the right ones opened, and the wrong ones closed.
Sorting. Yes.
So, Pete, do you want to kick this off a little bit? Do you want to kind of give us a rundown of what you guys have been working on with the Adosia DAO? We can get started from there.
Yeah, for sure. So, this is we've been talking about this for a long time. I'm talking like probably going on a couple years on and off, talking about Adosia, this decentralized marketplace that facilitates the selling of designs and then the creation of those designs in the real world and kind of all the interactions that go along with that. About a year ago, about a year ago now, I was asked to come in and join and start thinking about this, and we've been meeting regularly for the past year, designing and just discussing governance and the implications on this model. And then in November, in Fund 10, we were funded by Project Catalyst to do this proposal and build a governance model in public. So we have 4 milestones on our proposal. The first one was to write a paper, do a survey of governance models as they stand in the world and as we see them in this ecosystem, and kind of compare and contrast a little bit. We took a pretty broad approach. We are continuing to fill in the space and bring that broad overview down into reality, and you'll see we're taking a big picture look at all this stuff and trying to think modularly about how we want to begin quantifying social interactions that end up in smart contract interactions that define value transfers between the people that this service DAO supports.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first milestone, the survey, and the second milestone was a dive into what the ambassadors inside the Adosia project and early contributors and enthusiasts think about how governance should be run in this business. And so we had one-on-ones with contributors that were available and willing to come in and workshop with us, similar to what we're going to try and do in public now, and that leads us to M3. This is our public version of that exploration. Yeah. And so we're here, and we're gonna start talking about it. And then in milestone 4, we will publish our final framework to the degree that we have it finalized, and do a retrospective on all of our efforts during the project, and then that will be our closeout of the project funded by Project Catalyst and Fund 10.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So that's a good rundown of what got us here today, right? You guys actually did a lot of this already. You've done a lot of socializing. You had some Twitter Spaces. You've had a couple of Discord things. I guess on a couple of the Discord things, the recordings didn't go so well. Things may break. Hi, Chris. Yes, things may break. So why not? Let's add a little bit more socialization of the product. It's not going to hurt to get more voices, more people interested. So since I've got, I see Kyle's come in and got the motorcycle going in the background. It's not SpacePlace without Kyle and a motorcycle, right? And so good to see you, Kyle. Hope you had a good day today out there pressing the flesh with all those potential investors.
Yeah, good day today. Good day.
Awesome.
Good to hear, man.
You guys good?
Yeah.
How
Tired, pumped, good. Oh, we lost Lloyd. He'll be right back. Don't worry.
I love that we can hear the crickets in your background, Kyle.
Those are frogs.
Frogs. Better yet.
Speaking of things may break, I just got totally knocked off, and yeah, the frogs and the frogs there are like crazy. The noises that they make.
Yeah.
But,
really
Kyle
loud.
was out at a conference today, and hoping to learn a little bit more as the nights go on. We got
You
a
got
little
a
time.
conference coming up too, right,
Yep,
Lloyd?
we got some stuff on Saturday that we've got. We're going to be doing a presentation of Main Street. I got it all loaded on my phone and ready to go now. Finally have Main Street in my hot little hands, and I am
Loading some SDKs.
You know it, yeah.
Where are you doing that? Where are you doing the presentation?
Austin, Texas.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there's a ATX DAO in Austin, and they're having this pitch competition on Saturday. So I'm literally flying in Saturday morning, flying out Saturday night. I barely have time to touch the ground, and I'm back out.
It's worth doing it that way just to avoid Super 8s, you know.
And I did these guys a real solid favor. We have an appointment with Kaizen with Pritesh at 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday.
Pritesh is in Dubai, so that's actually a very reasonable time of day for him.
So thank you.
I'm going to be awake because I'll be traveling, so it's perfectly fine.
Hardcore, guys.
So we're staying as efficient as possible this weekend.
Yeah, love the flow. Love the flow. Oh my god.
It really is a big day, honestly, because like on the drip drop side of things, we launched proof of liquidity today. It's something we've had in the pipeline for a very long time. We have our first client going live today. Super pumped about it. We probably picked the worst day to announce it and go live with it because it's the first day of Fund 11 voting. So everybody's pumped about that. But it's okay because that's also important.
Right.
So
yeah, and we will talk a little bit about voting for Fund 11 as the night goes on here. But I want to, for now, we're going to stick with the Adosia topic, and let's get so milestone 3 is this public, socializing of the work that you guys have done. Now, Pete, I've got a screen share here for you. Do you want me to pull that up so you guys can kind of describe a little bit about what this model looks like? And then we can maybe get some feedback. We can ask Adam and Steve for some feedback on what they're, what they think of the model. Does that sound good?
If you want to do that, I want to go through some of the logic that kind of led us to where we are right now, just briefly.
Okay. Yeah.
So initially, me and Pete worked on a 3-point survey, and what we did was we looked at traditional models of governance in the corporate world, in the traditional world of finance and manufacturing and technology and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And our purpose for doing that was, yes, we're obviously in a decentralized ecosystem, and that's what everybody's trying to work towards. But it's good to know where you came from to try to get a good plan and a good footwork on where you want to get to. And so we looked at some of the things that we know from our past, and we analyzed different corporate governance models. I know corporate's a dirty word, but I think it's important for one major reason, and I'll get to that in just a second. We looked at the Anglo-American model, the continental European model, and the Asian model. There's huge cultural differences between them. There are obviously lots of pros and cons between them. And so I'm going to look at the kind of the high points on some of these. So the Anglo-American model, there's always been, and this is probably the newest one. It is the newest one out of all of them since the early 19th century. So there's an Anglo-American. There's an emphasis on maximizing shareholder value. There's independent directors always dominate the board. There's open capital markets for financing. And it's usually based around principles-based regulations, at least as far as the government's concerned. The continental European model, there's always an emphasis on, not always, but usually an emphasis on a broader range of stakeholders, including employees and the community around it. There's typically a two-tier board structure in some countries, and there's a focus on long-term stability over short-term shareholder value. Now, the Asian model is where things really get interesting because there's, it's typically always been family-owned, very kinship-oriented businesses. Decision-making is always influenced by personal relationships and informal networks. And there's a lot of government ownership or influence in a lot of these Asian countries and their governance over corporate governance. Now, I think the primary thing we were able to reduce from that research we did, and by the way, we've documented all this in very, very good detail. If you go to the Adosia Twitter, we have links to all this stuff. We've been working on this stuff publicly, so anybody can go in there to the Google Drives and pull this stuff out and look through our research and see what we've kind of arrived at. But I think this research has kind of given us a point of visibility on where potential attack vectors are. Because if you look at the Asian model, for example, everything's family owned. You have that, that hierarchy in the family, and then there's obviously a big governance component there. Same thing with not the same thing, but the continental European model and the Anglo-American model. They're very similar in a lot of ways, but also a little bit different. With European stuff being more prescriptive as far as regulations are concerned, and a heavier reliance on bank financing. And, with the Anglo-American, really the North American model, there's more of a focus on shareholder rights than anything.
I'd say that tracks pretty well with lived experience, right? That's
yeah. And so it gives us that kind of visibility on where the vectors are, where things can go wrong, where there's room for improvement, and where a more, I know it's an interesting word because it's been politicized so much. It's particularly in America with the left versus right and all this kind of thing, but inclusion, because what we're trying to arrive at is a model of governance that is inclusive, because we want everybody to be representative, some representative model of democracy. Maybe democracy is even a bad word, but we want everybody to have a say and everybody to have, kind of equal footing. And so we've looked at all these different models, and this is where we are now. Go ahead, Pete.
Because like where we are with blockchain, right? We're crossing borders, right?
Exactly.
We're global rather than, centered around any particular culture. So if we are going to work globally, we have to learn to work together across cultures, across borders, across time zones, languages, everything. So there's a real challenge here.
It absolutely is. And some of the things we really want to avoid are short-termism, inequality, lack of social responsibility, problems in agency, lack of
Those all sound like very common problems we're all experiencing pretty
Yep.
universally today. So hopefully, if we're making a difference, if we're doing it, we're making changes in those areas. So Pete, you've got this up here on the screen. This is a high level overview of what the proposed Adosia governance model is. Is that right?
That is right.
Okay.
That is correct. So, yeah, when we think about the plethora of interactions that could be tracked, or between all of the different people that are sharing value in a small business, it gets very complicated very quickly. And the more structure, especially arbitrary structure, created at the beginning, really can can quickly cripple a team that is trying to move very quickly. So we have this type of problem has caused myself to study things like Agile and Scrum project management, which essentially create a social framework and SOP, standard operating procedure, that can grow vertically and horizontally, and align potentially large numbers of people, but definitely small groups of people. And it starts with a unit of people less than 10. And so we're focusing our fractal towards that type of size. And as you can see here, we pretty much have a team running Scrum, and there are a lot of ways that teams run Scrum, and we could get very specific as to what events and when those events can occur. But we're going to leave it high level and say that we can handle 6-7 roles, and then we have a product owner and Scrum Master that conduct this team. The Scrum Master's job is to unblock all the people from each other and getting their job done, so reduce friction with the social environment. And the product owner is responsible for curating and building this product backlog and ensuring high quality outputs from the team through communicating those the needs with them and working with the risks and vision involved. So that product backlog is iteratively synthesized in bite-sized amounts into a sprint backlog that the team works on in, you could say, a week or 2 weeks at a time. Then the team contributes work that is logged in these smart contract interactions, and the team is funded by the money that comes into these smart contract interactions and then is delivered to them through releases, which I imagine being like maybe there's an established burn rate or something, a weekly, monthly burn rate for that team, or maybe it's on a per unit of work basis, and we get to decide what a unit of work is worth, and maybe there's a variable cost based on expertise or something like that, variable rate based on expertise. And that's this smart multi-sig. Can block actions and block evolutions to the business model and help propose with and then the board members help build the product backlog and maintain the accountability that well, hopefully with good communication, help maintain accountability to the whole mechanism. Now, accountability, in my experience, starts from the top down, and so this environment is pretty flat. This is an obvious jump in hierarchy, so those elements those good qualities in leadership should be reflected in the actions of these members, these board members. Then downstream of all these smart contract interactions, you essentially have an action log that is readable in ways that can, in a plethora of ways that can be designed and formulated. And this is the fractal that is the Adosia service DAO at this time. And as you see, the action log would contain transactions where money moves, quality, and reputation information. And the schemes to these quality and reputation information to collect those are things we could talk about, things that are yet to be decided and frankly need to be an iterative process, but with some formalized beginning, because you have to bootstrap this and launch it. And that's the hardest part, I think, is kind of going for the scaling from bootstrap to having to grow this and add more teams, and the complexity just starts growing. So the need to change is baked into this fractal as we see it, as I see it. And yeah, Scrum reduces the friction for humans to change how they work with each other. And I think that is powerful.
So you've got a relatively flat Scrum workflow. Now, in that workflow, can you have you guys defined those roles at this point?
Yeah.
Yep.
For the most part, at Bootstrap, we have defined roles. So there would be this advisory board made up of so many members. That's not articulated. But we would have we can zoom out here and come up to the roles in a previous model. We have a print pool and design pool controller. So this person monitors the printers or the manufacturers and the designers, and kind of evaluates the quality of the designs coming in, and helps do checks on that quality for the people who actually have to use those designs to form to either do additive or subtractive manufacturing. And then we have some type of IT person to help manage the website, and that's our operations group. Then we have a community and marketing group, and there's a Discord moderator and customer service lead, and that person would be fielding customer service interactions from the community and, well, from the various stakeholders, and there would be some type of service desk for that. And then we'd have a marketing creator, or the lead voice for marketing, and then an ambassador coordinator, and then the product owner and scrum master. And those are the 6 imagined roles in this model. Yes.
And I think it might be helpful also, if I can share my screen, I'm going to do a quick run through on what exactly this governance model is supposed to be upholding or governing.
Go ahead and share, and we'll take a look.
So let's see here. Share screen. Entire screen. I'll go with that one.
Oh boy.
All right. Can everybody see this?
Yep.
All right, so I'm in Adosia.market right now. And I'm going to walk through some of what we've developed so far, so people can kind of get a sense of what the governance model itself is supposed to be trying to govern. So I've already logged in now with my NAMI testnet wallet. I'm on the preview network. So if you go to Adosia.market, you can use a wallet set up in the preview network to log in and do whatever you want to do here. And so this whole model here kind of starts from the design standpoint. So you would go to start selling. So if you had a 3D design, some kind of physical item you wanted to have manufactured, you would select whatever category you wanted to go with. I'll go with hobby. Design name, drone frame, thumbnail image. You would use some IPFS, and I have some in my cache. So I'm just going to pick random stuff here. I don't even know what that is. GLB model. And then if your design, a lot of designs will be just one STL file. Some designs might be 25. It just depends on the complexity of the model. So you would put all that stuff in here. And if you had an RC car, it would have, if you had a front left and a front right A-arm, those will be mirrored copies of each other. So they might, depending on design, they might be exact copies. So you could do that and do a quantity of 2. And you would kind of stack that to basically achieve all the individual parts that will make up that completed model. Then you could come in here and say design price. Now, free design, if you're going to upload something to the site that's open source already, you just want to share it with the community, that needs to be free, because we want to have a methodology in place with this governance model to filter out things where people are trying to sell open source files and make a profit on it. We can't allow that, at least not from our side. If you're doing something that's proprietary, something you design, you do a paid design, you'll set the price in ADA and say it's some kind of drone frame with 10 or 15 parts. I'll set it for, 300 ADA, or not 3,000, 300, and upload that new design. I'm going to get an error because I'm missing files here. But we go back to the marketplace, and now from the position of end user, I'm going to come in here and say, okay, here's a shelf support pin. I have an IKEA bookshelf and I broke some of my support pins. I'm going to have this manufactured to replace some of those. So I'm going to go buy now. Yes, I want to buy that. I'm going to sign this message, this transaction in NAMI. Confirm. Okay, so my purchase has been successfully queued. This is going to go into my user dashboard. Now, if you're a printer operator, so what has just happened is, if I upload a design, there's one transaction. Okay, now there's another transaction as a buyer. I've said I want to buy this thing. That's my intention to purchase. So you'd come over to print off. Well, wait a minute. Purchase orders, awaiting offers. Okay, so if you're a printer operator, you go to purchase orders, awaiting offers. Somebody tried. I'm going off tangent here, but it's related. So somebody tried to buy this item here, or did I print that? It might be.
So that's the in the purchase orders. That's the purchases that you've made of designs that you want to submit for printing. Then once you've submitted that to the printers, then the print offers is what comes back.
Okay,
because those are all the offers that are out there, and this is where the printer operator comes, and they're going to select from all of the possible things that they can bid on. That are people waiting for designs.
So I'm going to grab this one. Okay, so here's something somebody tried to buy. Sorry, guys. It's been a month or two since I've been on the site. actually doing this very thing we're doing right now.
Y'all been too busy doing the governance and haven't been actually on the side.
All right. So make a print offer. I'm a 3D printer. First, I want to look at. Okay. So there's been 7 other people who have made offers. So this is one little tiny piece. I'm going to say 30 ADA. I'm going to estimate that I can have it in their mailbox by January 31st.
Damn.
I'll make that offer. Here's another transaction.
Now, it's important to note that ultimately Adosia's design is that it runs on a side chain that only the financial transactions of the money transferring back and forth from the buyer to the seller, that kind of thing, is the only transactions that will be in ADA. These other transactions will be in ADO, the Adosia token that will fuel the side chain. So it's even though you'll see lots of transaction fees here, that's not what the end user experience will be. The end user experience is just going to be only the transactions that actually move money from one person to another, from the buyer of a design to the designer, from the buyer of a print to the printer. That's the transactions that'll occur on Cardano mainnet. All the others will occur on a side chain.
So now I've just made this offer to print. Now, if this is something that I was, as a user, had bought and was waiting for print offers, that's where I would come over to purchase orders and see where someone had made an offer. And right?
That's right. And that your Did It Metal has 0 offers received,
Okay.
even though it's sitting there waiting for offers. It just has 0. Right. And then you can see that Frogleg 9000, it actually had a print offer that was completed.
Yep.
Right.
Nice.
Yep. So the bottom line is that these are all the kind of interactions and transactions that are going to be occurring as a dojo operates, right? That's the idea of what you're governing, is the interactions between all of these parties and the work it takes to maintain it. Because if a buyer doesn't like something and the seller says they did it right, who's right?
Right.
Who makes the decisions, right?
Right.
So there's the governance part of all of those messy human interactions that will be so meticulously maintained on the blockchain.
Yeah.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah, Steve, go on.
So everybody who's involved in this ecosystem, do they have an obligation to be involved in governance?
No.
Yeah. So, right, governance happens by whoever shows up, and then you have a potential personality issue, right, where it's just driven by the most aggressive personality. How do you
That's one of the main things we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks is the vacuum department, because we want to build this in a way where we're future proof against any vacuums, any gaps where a collapse could occur, and there's some void in communication between one element and another element, whatever it may be, whether it's somebody receives a Space Coins rocket and it's half melted, not assembled properly, and there's some quality control issue, and you end up in a situation where you have a printer operator who said, yeah, this thing was done up to standard, up to snuff, shipped it, and that final transaction, this is another part of the chain of transactions, is once the end user receives it as it stands now with the testnet platform we were just going through, the end user who receives it can go and say, okay, no, here's the photos of the thing. I received the thing. It's not up to snuff. There's some serious problems here. That's where the reputation systems come in. And so we have a whole nother layer of the governance that comes into play. And so, how does that function? And we have some ideas, and we think they're good ideas, but are they the right ideas? Because so far it's just been me, Peter, Lloyd, Melanie, Kyle, Matthias, Eric, and
Caleb.
Kind of throwing these ideas, and Quasar throwing some ideas around. And we've got a little bit of feedback from the community and shared our ideas. But, you know, and I want to reiterate too, we're trying to get to MVG, minimum viable governance. So what will allow us to have a functional governance model without these vacuums? and that's the key phrase, without the vacuums, because that can make things very complicated still. And then we still have the elements of the tokenomics and the rev shares between the different factions of the governance. And it's definitely hairy, but the reason we're doing, and, you know, and I want to just take that back too, because I saw a post today on Twitter, and it was very disheartening for me personally. I tweeted about it. I didn't say any names, but it was somebody who I really respect a lot, and somebody who used to be very involved with this project. And we were compared to another project that I'm not going to say their name, but it's worth knowing that Adosia has never had and I know I'm getting off topic here, but it's important to me because it affected me personally, emotionally. Adosia has never had a token sale. We didn't sell anything. Well, we've had NFTs. Some of those have been sold, but not enough to equate for 1 millionth of anybody's salary or pay or whatever you might want to call it to work on this project. And if we had 30, 40, $50 million, there's a whole lot of things we could do, but we don't have that luxury. So we've been building on this for several years with blood, sweat, and tears. All we have is initiative, shoestring budgets, and goals. And
we had a little bit of Catalyst funds to help along the way.
And absolutely, Catalyst has been a lifesaver, because we never could have come this far if it weren't for Catalyst. But my overall point is, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we're trying to do this the right way. We're not trying to half-ass it and bring some half-baked ideas to the table. And a lot of this stuff, admittedly, is very new to me. This, you know, governing in a way where, and it's new to everybody. It's not just me, but we're trying to govern this thing in a way where it makes sense. It's logistically sound, and people are represented in a way that is fair to everybody involved. And that's not an easy thing to accomplish, because I don't know if anybody's ever done such a thing. No government that exists on planet Earth today has achieved that. So it's a little bit, you know, of a far-fetched plan, but I think it's achievable to a degree, and it can grow. But what we have to do now is put in place the pieces that will allow us to bridge gaps when gaps occur. That's the thing. It's like a gap is going to come up, an attack vector is going to come up, some edge case is going to come up. We have to be able to identify those quickly and execute on them quickly. And that's it. That's what we're trying to achieve.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's why I really appreciate it. I've always appreciated what y'all are doing, you know, because you're doing kind of, you're creating an ecosystem that's including the whole supply chain from the start. And there's not many things you can do that with. You know, I can imagine that with certain businesses if I'm in certain locations and I have access to certain people. But, you know, like, I've been wondering how to approach those kinds of groups myself. You know, like, how do you sell a rancher and a tanner and a cobbler and a shoe salesman that they should all be involved, and they should include the buyer of the shoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a complicated thing to sell, because they're all such fucking different kinds of people, right? You know, like they don't normally think together in that sense. And but this with the 3D printing and everything, I think is really beautiful. And I was shocked to find out that in Australia voting is compulsory. Like, I didn't know that until I got involved in Catalyst governance, and I was talking to, I don't know who it was, and I was just like, really? How does that work out for y'all? It's like, really well, because they fine the shit out of you if you don't vote, right? So it works. I don't think that that's the way nations should be run. I mean, because life, right? No government can say that they know what you should be doing with your time. But this is a business. And I think this might be one of those kind of unique kind of situations where you can say, hey, if you want to be involved in a dojo, then you have to take part in this governance of because we're building it. And we're going to need every bit of input from every point of contact. And because you do, right? You're going to be building a statistical universe for a long time.
The feedback is critical for sure.
Yeah. And the balancing, like when you've got these scrums, you've got a scrum that's taken on a job, then everybody affected by whether or not that scrum actually does their job, they should be the advisory board, and if it's a different kind of scrum, you got a different kind of project and other people are affected, well, then those people that are affected should be on that advisory board, because otherwise you just get kind of rubber stampers or people who are like, yeah, I'll say that's okay. Here's a wallet, and I mean, it's the same problem you have in Catalyst, like how do you keep people from taking advantage of their position?
Exactly. And, let's also hear from Adam a little bit. It's an interesting place that you're coming from, because Adam has worked on building a tool that kind of helps structure organizations to work together. So, share with us, Adam. What are you thinking from what you're seeing here?
I'm not going to take any thunder from
Adam. I just want to thank you real quick, because we actually cited some of your research. We used some of your work in our work. So if you go look at some of the research we've done, you were in our research. So I just wanted to thank you for giving us some tools to learn from.
No, that's all. I mean, everybody's making such great stuff. I'm sure I've interacted with everybody here without even knowing it. So I love this community. So thank you. I think to kind of take a step back and think about this idea of governance and how do we do this. Before we were centralized, we were decentralized. The people who made the products were selling them to the people in the same town, and they were saying, I don't like that. I don't want that. And they had a very intimate relationship that wasn't about the transaction. It was about the town. It was about the people. And so I think we've gotten really far away from that. But then we introduced this new technology that goes across all barriers, that connects everybody, that gives us a trustless way of working. And I think we're starting to come back to the point of customers having a say in how the business is run. I might not be producing that good, but I want to vote because this is my local DeFi coffee shop, 3D printer, whatever. And I think that's where you don't have to incentivize us. We just haven't had this opportunity. And I think people don't know what to do. Our muscles are very weak working collaboratively. It's usually working top down. And so I think there's going to have to be education and a reawakening, but I think it's happening of whether we want it. I think market forces are sort of at play, but there are a lot of companies out there that are cooperatives that have already solved this, and they vote on paper and they put it in a hat and they trust each other. And so I think if they can do that, we can scale that and bring people in. That's where I look at real world examples.
That's an excellent point. And it kind of comes back to really the core of what we're trying to do here is you said something that kind of struck me. They don't have to be incentivized.
No.
And that's the golden thing right there is like we do want to incentivize people to use the program, but more than anything, what we want to do is create a DAO structure that will govern this machine where people that don't have the economic opportunity in places where these, where manufacturing and resources don't exist to be able to come in and engage in this system and create new economic models and create new economic opportunities for the people around them in their own communities. And there's a number of reasons for that. Look, if you're in Azerbaijan or somewhere like that, where you might not have tons of warehouses around you where they can store 2 years worth of product for a Walmart or something crazy like that. There's so many benefits in that because those things don't exist that you might not think about, but you don't have the resource hungry things like having the fossil fuel thing. You got to have fuel for the trucks. You don't have to have the storage for all the inventory. It's on demand, right? So the resources really come down to the individual printer operator in this particular scenario. So there's the economic position. There's the sustainability part of it, and all these things kind of come together, and it's massive. There's a massive potential here, and I think overall, I'm getting off topic again a little bit, sort of, but decentralized manufacturing, it's an abstract concept, but that's what we're working on. We want to make that a reality for people around the world, and we want to have the governance in place for it to function in a way that's inclusive and appropriate for everybody around the world, not just the guys in New York who are doing degenerate shit on unicorn swap or whatever the hell. We want everybody to have an equal opportunity, and I know that's very egalitarian, but I think it's achievable.
So there's a question from the audience. Cabaret Voltaire encrypted there. I'm pretty sure I know who that is. Pretty sure I know who that is. Yeah. Does a DAO need a token?
Absolutely not. I can give you 1,000 reasons why not. The University of Wyoming, they have a DAO, educational DAO. There's no token. I mean, there's a lot of DAOs. All a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. There's nothing financial about that whatsoever, as far as the phrase. It's just a collective of people who are on a mission together, autonomously, to achieve a certain goal. All you have to have is a common goal. That's it.
Yeah, and I think DAO can be a little nebulous sometimes, and so I've heard these organizations called internet native organizations, and I like that's INO, and yeah, that's a broader term, I feel like, and that could potentially be more palatable or sellable.
Absolutely, and there's points in a system like ours where it might be considered necessary. Excuse me. But where the ADO token and the Adosia ecosystem is kind of beneficial is, for one, if we're going to move to a side chain, but regardless of what chain we're on a blockchain where there is a transparent ledger. And so we can monitor all these interactions with people, and not we monitor, but the community monitor. Everybody has equal access to the data, and you can see what's being done, what's not being done, who's doing what they're supposed to do, who's not doing what they're supposed to do. The reputation system, for example, that will be powered by the ADO token. So it does play a part in all of these things because it gives us the ledger, and the ledger is really the value. It's not the token itself; it's the ledger. We can't cheaply use ADA as that mechanism because it doesn't make economic sense for people all around the world. So we can do it in a different way, but that's why we want to do the sidechain thing. We want to do it as cheaply as we possibly can, as fast as we possibly can, and as transparently as we possibly can.
It's that mix that ends up working, right? The mix that ends up working is keeping the financial transactions, the things that are the most critical part of this, on the main chain, because with them being there, I put my ADA on the line that I want this thing. I'm willing to print this object. I put my ADA on the line. I'm willing to spend this money to have this object printed. See, each of those, you're signaling your intent to purchase, but you're also leaving it in a safe place where if something goes wrong, you get your money back. And so it's reducing the risk, and then you reduce the friction through the transparency of the open ledger. And we do that cheaply in call it a federated sense. When you have a bunch of witnesses watching all of the transactions happening on the side chain, that just ensure that everybody's on equal footing and has equal access, in a democratic fashion, and never stop anyone from becoming a validator, as long as they're being an honest validator and accepting the whole data. The only way you remove a validator is validators, performing a invalid operations or breaking the chain, as it were. So as long as you're a good operator, you can validate with everybody else.
And this question is a really good one too. Why does the MVG and/or decentralization default to the idea of inclusivity?
Inclusivity.
Sorry, the stuttering is happening.
Inclusivity.
It doesn't. The inclusivity part of it is the human part, and that's where we come into play as a community to try to define these parameters and roles and communication pathways to try to do our best as humans to make sure these things have some kind of level of permanence down the road.
Well, let's hear from let's hear from Steve or Adam on that one too. Is it?
I definitely have a thought about this. I don't want to steal your thunder, Steve, though.
No, go for it.
I need thunder.
So imagine you live in a neighborhood and the neighborhood decides to create a DAO, and it's to manage the park. And they want to have an ice cream truck that comes by every Friday, and everybody's willing to contribute $10 a week to that. I don't think anybody outside that neighborhood should get a say in the park or the ice cream truck. If we're paying for that, if we're paying to have these additional services and a band that walks around and plays, trombones and string music, then there is an exclusivity from the purpose of the group, but an inclusivity within the group. I'm going to take a sidestep. Now imagine there's a building. It's got 6 units in it, and each person buys that condominium, but they also are now co-responsible with 5 other people for the garage, the landscaping, the roof. These have to be negotiated. They have to be talked about. And so should the person who lived there the longest get a say? Should the people who come and visit the most get a say? I don't think so. I think it should be the people who live there get some sort of voting capacity. And just because I moved in doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to vote on the garage doors. So there is an exclusivity that comes with living in that building, but an inclusivity in my opinion and my voting rights. And I think the way we think of business today is very challenging, because if I have a good idea for your business, I can put it in your feedback box, and one person will decide if that idea will make them more money or them status in the organization, or everybody looks good. And then they will decide to do your idea. You get no credit, you get nothing for it. And now I look like a hero if I do it. So it's not that there's anything wrong with it, but that is our current model. So it is a weird mindset to think that other people will now be having voting rights to talk about stuff that they're not directly responsible for. But that also means that it could impact them equally to you as well. So that's where I think the nuances of language as we kind of transition into this governance.
And I do want to take one step back to the root of the question and just make one point. So I want to make sure we're clear on this. So why does the MVG and or decentralization default to the idea of inclusivity? The MVG and decentralization of the Adosia platform itself is primarily for accountability. That is the root of it. Nothing else. There's some other benefits and perks, unintended consequences, unintended happy trees, but it's really accountability.
Right. And it's inclusive of the individuals and groups who are interested in Adosia's success. That's who it is inclusive of. It's not inclusive of my mom, who really couldn't care less about 3D printing or manufacturing anything. It's just not her thing. But it would be very inclusive of anybody who is. And hi, Mom, because she does watch SpacePlace sometimes.
If you can figure out the trick, to get an ice cream truck driver in the Adosia DAO to help pay some of these expenses, then
yeah,
that might be an idea.
And I wanted to bring up Mark Byers here as well, because he said maybe you might be better off without a token, just a DID for each person in the DAO. And that, that really does come down to it, to Adam's point he was just making, that if it's 6 people in a unit, each of those 6 people gets their DID and they each get their voting power. And it's really very simple. The same model can work here if we have some sort of, and this is, I know we've all talked about Catalyst over and over again. One of the hardest things to deal with in Catalyst is the fact that there is a degree of anonymity, and that degree of anonymity is what causes a vast number of the problems that we experience as well, because of the gaming that happens. It doesn't mean it's wrong to leave the anonymity. There's valid, good arguments for having some anonymity within the system. But the fact of the matter is, it gets way easier when you can touch everybody that you know. As we've said in the Drip Drops team, the most important thing is you need to be able to punch them in the face. That's how you know.
That's how you know who's accountable.
That's right.
Cabaret Voltaire Encryptment has some hard questions for us. This is another good one.
No, that is interesting. Changing the narrative, and it's exactly what the discussion that just happened here, that very much points to it the same way. What was the next one they said they had here? They're looking at DAOS as a long-term organization or anxiety. I think it's why we're looking at DAOs as a long-term. When reality shows that things are better with an exploration. I think
Mr. Voltaire's got a lot of time on his hands.
Yeah.
Those are really
well. I mean, the point remains, though. I mean, DAO, there is the give and take. So, a DAO, because you can end up in a situation where in a DAO, you have a system of permanence that you can't escape.
Yeah.
And then you end up with a big problem, and you can't explore your way out of it. Right? Because that's exactly what he or she is saying here. Organization or anxiety when reality shows that things are better with an exploration. And that is precisely what we have been banging our heads against the wall with Adosia, because we want to make sure, like we were talking about early on in the show, is the vacuum points, because there will be some. There will be vacuums, there will be gaps, there will be edge cases, there will be exploits, and we want to make sure that those are, how do we deal with those things in a DAO that has some level of permanence?
So this is like a really tricky space, because the current setup that we have is like Polaroid's a great example. They were like, we're only going to make film. And then they make film and everyone's like, you're it. We love this. And then they innovated. They did all this cool stuff and they moved to digital. And then they just stopped innovating. And they were like, no, we're going to double down on film. And then they died. And you look at Polaroid, Kodak, all of these different companies that are like either a holding company now or something like a bastardized example. But I think what's important to see is that DAOs should be self-replicating. They should get to a point where their structure should be evaluated. And it's not like the money needs to stay. If you are contributing money, or you could create funds to spin up an organization that provides shared services to other DAOs, that almost is a growing, increasing business model. And you can determine, do I want to be in both? Do I want to be in one? These are things that are now options versus I can't go start another Kodak. I would get sued into oblivion. And then 5 years later, I will pop my head up and go, okay, now I'm going to start my cool film company. But it's been 5 years. What have I done? Right. And I think that's where this mindset shift is: a DAO for a multi-tenant facility, a DAO for a family to manage their trust, a DAO for a neighborhood, a DAO for an organization like Adosia. These are things where it's now more a mechanism than an actual literal thing. And that's where this space is so exciting to me conceptually, is that it doesn't need permanence. It doesn't need to have this ongoing long form. It can grow and change on purpose.
Here's Duck with the RC stuff. You're tugging at my heartstrings, homie. I'm a big RC nerd.
RC and 3D printing do go well together. They really do. But that's where I'm looking for the human energy. Where's the human energy captured in these spaces. And that's what, because we're getting right up to the top of the hour. So it is time to get to our closing thoughts here. And so, that is really what this comes down to, right? We are capturing human energy, human purpose toward a common goal. I heard that tonight. I think that's great. I think hearing that, working with that is a great idea. Using a DAO as a means to organize a finite, exclusive group of whatever that is particular to a topic. I think that's a great nuance that we got here tonight as well. What else, guys? What are your closing thoughts? What are you guys thinking tonight after
I do want to say to Pete real quick, I thought this was a good one. So Cabaret, HOAs and ensuring common areas like shared spaces, a great use of multi-sigs and DAOs. Let's take a note to look at HOA because we haven't even thought of that. And it really is a good model, even though they're a huge pain in the ass, depending on your.
Don't look at my HOA. I don't like the way it's going right now.
But I'm going to give you guys a story real quick. I lived in Fuquay, Varina, Holy Macaroni's home territory. I lived out there for a little while in a neighborhood. What the hell was it called? Something Lakes. Where was that neighborhood called? I can't remember, so long ago now. Anyway, the neighborhood has like 400 houses in it now. When I moved in, my house was the second house to be built. So it was very nice to have that freedom and space for a really long time before it started getting busy in there. Anyway, I'm a ham radio operator. There was no HOA when we bought the property. It didn't exist. So I put up a 100-foot ham radio tower behind my house. I had antennas and shit all over the place and, going about my business. Well, once about 30 or 40 homes in there, then an HOA formed, and they came and tried to get me to sign paperwork to join the HOA, and I kept telling them to fuck off because they didn't like my tower. They wanted my tower to be gone, and there was plans to be multiple additions onto the neighborhood as time went on.
They tried to trick you to sign the paper.
They were trying to fucking trick me, so I kept telling them to fuck off, and I ended up with. Anyway, we had cable TV and cable internet, whatever, through Time Warner, and the internet was garbage. And so I was fishing around for a better internet provider, and I ended up doing a satellite thing as a test trial or whatever. And so I had the satellite mounted on the roof of the house, and the guy from the HOA came out there, and while the guy was installing the satellite dish, right? A guy from the HOA comes up and he's like, "You can't mount that there." And I said, "You can't be in my fucking yard. Get the fuck out of my yard." So we had this whole back and forth, and the satellite installer was like, he was a young guy. He was probably like 18, 19 years old. He was like, he didn't know what to fucking do. I was like, install a satellite dish. Fuck that guy.
I just don't have a filter.
Anyway, we ended up selling the house, sold the house and moved on. But the people who bought the house from us had no choice but to sign into the HOA because they were the new property owner anyway. So I felt sorry for those people. But anyway, I don't know why I had felt the need to do that. But yeah, let's go research HOAs.
Place. And as we were saying, the closing thoughts.
We may be buying a house in a historic district, so it's not an HOA, but they have like this loose club, and they take, I think it's $25 a year, and it's really just to have a common sense of how the exterior is supposed to look. It's what they say, But I'm really curious, if I put a 50-foot ham tower up there with a big blue light, what they would think about that.
I mean, that's how we are here where I am now. My house was built in 1863.
Oh yeah.
And so we're really respectful of that, actually. I mean, I know I sound like a hard ass earlier, whole story there, but I mean, I am respectful when it makes sense. I mean, we're in a historic district here. I do care about history and the preservation of these homes in our neighborhood, in our area. So I'm not a dickhead to the people around here, but
just context. Sometimes there's a need for it, right?
That's right. Time and a place.
All right, guys. Well, it's as always a fun journey through the Cardano universe. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Steve, for joining us tonight. Pete and Chris for showing us the Adosia governance model as it stands today, and helping adding a little bit more context to wrapping up milestone 3 here now that you guys, to avoid the technical difficulty that came from last week. And on that note, we will see you guys next week.
Peace, guys. Thanks for coming, Adam and